was one heck of a Christmas break, and I've been chomping at the bit to get back here. I've had to revise my opinion of Twitter. Yes, I have. I'll explain it in a minute. So what happened? The president kills a well-known terrorist who is responsible for the death of hundreds of Americans, including uniformed military personnel, and the left melts down. The left has a breakdown. If anybody is puzzled by this, all you have to do is go back to when Trump came down the escalator on June 15th of 2016 and announced his slogan, Make America Great Again. Remember how controversial that was? Make America Great Again? What's controversial about that? What in the world is controversial about America First? But it is to the American left. And therein lies the explanation for all of this. Of course, I'm going to break it down into many, many details for you. Great to be back, folks. Happy to have you with us. The telephone number, 800-282-2882, if you want to be on the program. Twitter, in my mind, has become useful. Now, Snerdley and the gang on the other side of the glass are looking perplexed and puzzled because it is well known that I think of sewer and Twitter is inseparable. But Twitter is highly useful right now. Twitter is allowing the left and today's Democrats and the media to show normal people how freaking insane they are. Twitter has become worthwhile. It is incredible. I wonder how many, as I watch this display, as I watch the left melt down over the death of a genuine enemy of the people of this country and side with an enemy nation over their own country and president. I wonder how many Americans, independents, what have you, who are on the fence see this and are shocked and surprised by it. I do, because, you know, you never know the depth that the mainstream media succeeds in achieving in terms of persuading people. And I have found over the course, you might find this hard to believe, folks, but I have found over the course of my stellar big broadcast career, I've said things about, just take your pick. I've said something and I've pounded it for 10, 15 years. And people have heard it 10, 15 years. And they hear it from somebody else. My God, did you see? Rush must be right. In other words, everybody needs verification, or a lot of people need verification. Well, one of the missions of this program since its inception has been the attempt and the objective to inform everybody ideologically who the left is, who liberals are, what liberalism is, how it becomes indistinguishable from socialism. Yeah. And now, I mean, it's unmistakable who these people are. And they are the ones making it well known. Nobody has to tell anybody what the American left is or what the modern-day Democrat Party is, because they are out there informing everybody. You see where Iran has announced it will no longer abide by the terms of the 2015 nuclear agreement with Obama. A guy like Bill Clinton announcing he's no longer going to abide by his marriage vows. I mean, big deal. Anybody shocked by the Iran? They never have abided by the... Well, in fact, they may have abided because the terms of the deal freed them to go ahead and develop nuclear weapons, nuclear power, and all of this. Look, let me take a stab. I'm late to this issue and story's been around since late last week. Let me take a stab at explaining this. Oh, and by the way, folks, I need to tell you, I have some kind of, it's a weird thing. I never had this before, a little respiratory cold. And it has, I don't have stuffed nose or throat or any of that. It's kind of like asthma. I had asthma when I was a kid. Shortness of breath. So if I speak a little slower, that's why. Don't be distracted by it. I'll try not to make it distracting. Why is the left being so blatant in their support for an enemy nation? Why is the left, why is the Democrat Party going out of its way to tell everybody that they actually prefer the mullahs in Iran and this dead terrorist, Qasem Soleimani. By the way, this guy, and I have the inside track on how they did it, which I will share with you as the program unfolds. I mean, the military operation. I have the inside track of how this was done. It is amazing. And as ironic as it sounds, we may have to really, really praise the intelligence community for pulling this off. I mean, the deep state IC. But this guy, the Revolutionary Guard General Qasem Soleimani, his body is being flown back to Tehran in a cardboard box with his picture on it across 3 coach seats on an Iranian airline. The New York Post has the picture. He's in a cardboard box. Of course, there's not much of him left, just his finger with the ring on it. That's how he was identified. So, but still, and they've got his picture on the cardboard box. But he was a bad dude, folks. Now, why? Why is the left beside themselves? I think, and there are many reasons for this, by the way, and all of them I've discussed before, but in terms of what may be guiding this in a specific sense, I think as much is the case with the modern-day Democrats, it's about protecting the legacy of the Obama administration and Obama himself and the Obama foreign policy. To many conservatives and many Republicans, Reagan is the president of all time, the president of presidents, and no matter what kind of assaults or attacks on him, they're going to be answered and defended. And I think to the left, it used to be Clinton. I actually now think it's Obama. That must be protected above all things, must be shielded against all attempts. It was the Obama administration that ran the coup on Trump, and it went all the way to the Oval Office. There's no doubt in anybody's mind. Pelosi, by the way, still hasn't sent the articles of impeachment over. Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, says he's going to offer a resolution to just dismiss the charges because she won't send the articles over. And nobody knows when she's going to send them over. She's trying to, again, persuade people to reopen the case in the Senate for more witnesses. But I think she may be waiting for Durham. She may be waiting for the Durham report, even if that's 6 months from now, and use the articles being sent to the Senate to blunt whatever bad news might be coming down the pike for the Democrats. Durham could be one thing predictable, could be something we don't know about. But let me explain this Obama business as a way of explaining how the left is imploding on this. It has been fashionable. Actually, it's not been fashionable to call them anti-American, but the reason I asked the question, what in the world is so controversial about Make America Great Again? Do you realize that phrase sent them into apoplexy? Make America Great Again or America First sends them into a nosedive and into a tizzy. What in the world, to normal, decent, common citizen Americans, what in the world is controversial about that? Make America Great Again. The answer is very simple. There are a lot of people in the Democrat Party who don't think America ever has been great, do not think America can be great because of our founding, don't believe America deserves to be great, and in fact thinks America is guilty. And they have now become the mainstream of the Democrat Party. Madeleine Albright teaching at Georgetown University. One of the things that she teaches students is that the United States is nothing but an accident of timing and events. That there's nothing special about the United States. That there certainly is nothing exceptional about the United States. That it was just an accident. It would just happen, a confluence of events. People fleeing the dictatorship of the king in Great Britain, any number of other things, forces beyond anybody's control, brought these events together and a nation was created, but it's just an accident. And therefore, there's nothing really unique about it. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing noteworthy about it. Now, Madeleine Albright you might also remember that when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union imploded, that Madeleine Albright was very alarmed that left the United States as the only superpower in the world, and that was not good. Because you see, the concept of America as the good guys does not exist in today's Democrat Party and the worldwide left. Do not doubt me on this. There is no concept of America as the good guys. And that's why Make America Great Again is so offensive to them. America's not the good guys. America needs to be cut down in size. America needs to be limited. America needs to be guarded against. So Madeleine Albright's out there teaching young skulls full of mush. There's nothing special about America. It's just a coincidence, just an accident. And that the United States, as a singular superpower, is a destabilizing element in the world. Okay, that brings us forward. She was Secretary of State, among other things, for Bill Clinton. She has views which are common in the modern day left, and they are common in the American government. They're common in the American establishment. That view that America alone as a superpower is destabilizing is a view widely held in the civil service, throughout the State Department. It's not an obscure view. It's not a minority view. It took me a long time to learn this, long time to believe it, long time to understand it, long time to accept it. Tough thing to accept. You grew up in your own country, you take civics, you go to school when you're a young kid, you're taught about the founding of the country, you're aware of how unique and exceptional America is, and then you discover that people in your own government don't buy it, don't believe it, don't think it. In fact, think just the exact opposite. It's a tough thing to believe. A lot of people don't want to believe it. A lot of people don't want to accept that in our own government there are people who do not believe in the goodness of the United States, the concept of America as the good guys. But you're looking at it in every bit of this opposition to what Trump has done. You're seeing it. If you don't want to believe me, do not deny what you're seeing. Do not deny what you're reading. They hate that Trump did this for a host of reasons. They hate that Trump succeeded at it in a political sense. They hate that Trump has done damage to the Obama foreign policy. Now, the reason I mentioned Madeleine Albright is because Obama was of the same view. Do you know what Obama's policy in Iran was? Aside from giving them nukes, but what was the motivation for it? Obama had the same view of the Middle East that he and Madeleine Albright and all the rest of them have of the United States. The Middle East was destabilized when only Israel was an economic and military power. One of the reasons and there are many, one of the reasons the Obama administration entered into the Iran deal, one of the reasons that they engaged Iran, one of the reasons that Obama dropped off $150 billion in cash on the tarmac in Tehran, and don't think that some of it didn't get to Qasem Soleimani. A lot of it did. They knew who the guy was. The Obama people knew who the guy was. They were making deals with this guy. They knew exactly who he was. Obama believed that empowering Iran would stabilize the Middle East, provide a counterbalance to Israel. Because once again, the Israelis are not seen as the good guys, even though they are a United States ally. And by the way, there are many reasons why people like Obama, Susan Rice, and Madeleine Albright, and all the rest would not see Israel as the good guys. There are religious reasons, there are geopolitical reasons, strategic reasons, racial reasons. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons for it. But regardless, Israel is the problem in the Middle East. The United States is the problem in the world at large. And so policies must be developed and implemented to blunt the bad guy nature of the United States and the bad guy nature of Israel. And so there's Obama and his administration funneling money to the mullahs, enabling them to modernize, going through the motions of sanctions, which were not really sanctions. It wasn't until Trump came along that all of that changed, and the American left looks at Donald Trump as many things, but one of the things they see is an assault on Obama, an assault on Obama's foreign policy, an effort and an attempt to unravel and unwind it. And they're right. Trump is unwinding and unraveling a horrible Middle Eastern policy from the Obama administration. I foretold this. I have a soundbite I want to play for you from the summer of 2018. I have to take a break here. We'll be back and continue right after this. Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh back after a 2-week Christmas break. I want to go back to the audio soundbites. I've got just enough time to squeeze this in. Audio soundbite number 17, July 23rd, 2018. I told everybody way back then how Trump's Iran policy was going to be different. The drive-bys are now obsessed, for the moment, with Trump and his all-caps tweets to President Rouhani of Iran, who is continuing to shout death to America here and death to America there. And Trump's had it. You know, Trump is not like other presidents who say, well, you know, that's just Iran, and that's part of what we have to do, and being a superpower, and, you know, to show Iran we don't intend them any harm, here's $150 billion direct from the Obama administration, along with a stupid deal to help them ratchet up their nuclear program. Trump looks at this and is appalled by it, as anybody with any common sense would be. The only people not appalled by it are people working inside the Beltway in Washington who think this is somehow new diplomacy or maybe standard practice diplomacy. But it's part and parcel of being a superpower. I mean, that kind of inane thinking is what guides America inside the Beltway. And so letting Iran run amok, letting Iran continue to be the state sponsor of terrorism, undermine Middle East peace however they wish to, and become the #1 Middle Eastern ally of Russia, Donald Trump says, no, you're going to start threatening us. Trump caps tweets back. You keep doing this and you're going to suffer consequences, the likes of which you have never even contemplated. Of course, they need the vapors inside the Beltway. So what do we glean from this? This is July 2018. January 2020 right now. It's a year and a half ago. Trump has simply followed through with what he told the Iranians he was going to do. And this guy, Qasem Soleimani, hits the Saudi oil fields. Trump bides his time. Man of his word. They don't know how yet to react to that. I love it. All these leftist hand-wringers out there, the think tank liberal scholars wringing their hands. Oh, I wish somebody had spent more time warning the president about the day after and the day after the day after, because the president reacted here very, very recklessly, and I don't think he had any idea of what the blowback would be. These people, folks, if we ever end up with these people having absolute control and power over this country, they are going to give it away. They're going to give it away under the premise that America deserves to be chopped down hugely in size. I mean, it's not hard to understand this at all. The concept that America is the good guys, they just don't believe it. And that attitude and that view has been taught to way too many people now, starting at the earliest ages, the earliest levels of formal education. and it stinks. It is pathetic. I also have a challenge here. We don't, 3 hours goes by very quickly, and I've got a soundbite roster here of over 40 sound bites, and the first 15 are about me. Now, I don't like to make this program about me, but many of these sound bites were about me during the break. And, of course, I came in for lots and lots of criticism, improperly and unfairly influencing the president with secret lunch meetings that were not secret. Maligned and impugned by Chuck Todd, a blithering political idiot, on NBC News. And then we have all of the news that's been made in addition to stuff dealing with me. So it's going to be a challenge to get it all in. We also have, exactly 2 hours from now, the president himself will be here. President Trump at 2:33 Eastern time this afternoon, barring something happening between now and then that would require him to have to cancel because his attention's needed elsewhere. So that is all coming up. Grab some of these sound bites. I want you, let's see, let's do 18, 19, and 20, just to give a flavor to the things I mentioned in the opening two monologues. Here's David Petraeus yesterday on Face the Nation talking about the death of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian Quds Force commander. Here's what he said.
It's impossible to overstate the significance of the attack that takes out Qasem Soleimani and the #2 militia leader in Iraq as well, who also never dared to set foot in Iraq during the surge after we missed him and he escaped. So this is bigger than bin Laden. It's bigger than Baghdadi.
Bigger than bin Laden, bigger than Baghdadi. Now, isn't it interesting that when we went out, we got bin Laden, there was no liberal hand-wringing from the left and from all of their think tank scholars. Gee, I wish somebody had told President Obama about the day after and the day after the day after. I'm so worried about the destabilizing effects of taking out bin Laden. None of that. There was no concern whatsoever. There was nothing but praise. And we got the pictures of Hillary Clinton and Obama sitting in a situation room in their official military jackets watching the operation take place. And we were told how brilliant they are and how brave they are, how courageous they are, how they stuck to it. They finally tracked down bin Laden, and bin Laden was now room temperature. Now, this happens, and of course, it's predictable. You want all this talk about politics ending at the water's edge. Politics ending at the water's edge. Joe Lieberman has a piece in the Wall Street Journal reminding Democrats, and what the hell are you doing? You're siding with enemies of this country. And there's nothing new about that. This is why I'm grateful Twitter exists today. There's nothing new about today's left and the Democrat Party siding with America's enemies, particularly with Donald Trump. But they did it when Bush was in the White House as well. You remember when Bush was running the war on terror and the Iraqi war? They were out talking about the atrocities being committed by the American Marines. Abu Ghraib and Haditha. And it was horrible. These people just couldn't wait to savage the United States and the United States military. And they are so misreading the situation, and Biden's out making an abject fool of himself. You know what he said? Before this even happened, Biden goes into, I guess it was Western Pennsylvania, some coal mining region, which he admits, like Obama, that he's going to destroy, all to save the planet. And he says to these people, look, if you can go 200 feet down in a mine and bring back some of this ugly coal stuff, then for crying out loud, you can learn to code, for God's sake. You notice Biden always ends statements like, for God's sake, God this, God that. Oh, my God. God figures in everything Biden says, either at the beginning or end of a sentence. Learn to code? That's his solution to the miners? These guys, I'm telling you, have no idea. The Democrats have no idea the damage they're doing to themselves in the very areas that Trump won in 2016. They are so insistent that Democrat voters adopt the same anti-American views that they hold as a way of getting elected president. I don't care what we have not reached the point in America yet where a majority of the voters hates their country and wants to elect people who think and feel the same way. And yet that's what the Democrats are doing. Why? Very simple. Because they think in the day they do win, they want that mandate. They want to be elected on the premise that America's got problems, big problems. America's problems are America's fault. America's problems are because of America, and they want the mandate to be able to deal with the country on that basis. And they're creating a growing base of people filled with hate for any number of things, including for their own country. We put together a montage of Democrats and the drive-by media siding with Iran over Trump from last Thursday and Friday.
These folks, proud Persians, what we have done here is unleash the tiger.
This escalatory cycle right now is a direct result of President Trump.
A very dangerous and escalatory moment.
Very, very dangerous.
How dangerous of an escalation.
Escalation to war. It's very dangerous. It makes no sense.
Big escalation. How do we get off the escalation ramp?
There will be terrible, terrible reprisals.
Escalate against Iran. So they started lashing out.
A reckless act that could lead to dangerous reprisals.
This administration has a massive credibility gap because the president lies so much.
This was the pride of Islam, and we have to avenge his death.
All American citizens are now walking prime targets.
There will be dead Americans, dead civilian Americans as a result.
This act of war without congressional authorization.
This is an act of war. That is why past presidents have stopped short of it.
All right, now I don't want to give you the names of the people there. It doesn't matter. You can guess them yourselves. Have you noticed whenever United States of America takes proactive action to defend itself, or takes action to punish those who have committed atrocities against us, notice the reaction. Oh my God, this is escalation. Oh my God, we're all in danger. Oh my God, these are the appeasers. These are the people that will let atrocities continue. These are the people that will allow beheadings and terrorist acts to continue against Americans on the basis that reacting to it is somehow escalating things. Escalating. This guy blew up an oil depot in Saudi Arabia, happens to be one of our allies. This guy has been responsible. I have a list of his atrocities I'll share with you as the program unfolds. This guy has had a personal hand in the death of over 600 American soldiers, conducting IED attacks, ordering them, structuring them in Iraq and in Afghanistan, as long as we have been in both places. He's not innocent. He wasn't minding his own business one day and Donald Trump decided to take him out. This guy asked for it. In the days of Obama, he'd get away with it. In the days of Bush, he might not have gotten away with it. What I found interesting, one of these voices here was Max Boot. Max Boot is part of the Never Trumper crowd that wants us in all of these places conducting military operations. But just like the rest of the Never Trumpers, here comes Trump doing what these people advocate, and they can't even support that. They've got to sit here and talk about how Trump has a credibility gap because he lies so much. But if you let these people run things, there will never be any serious defense of Americans or American interests, because they believe to do so is to escalate. And it's all, you remember, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an analogy. The first Gulf War was Saddam to liberate Kuwait. George H.W. Bush was the president. I will never forget Sam Donaldson on ABC News warning Americans that the end was near, that we had no business conducting a desert war because we were not qualified. We didn't know how to win, how to conduct a desert war. Saddam, that's his lair. That's his natural habitat. Saddam was going to wipe us out. Sam Donaldson did a feature on the number of body bags that would be needed. The war was over in 18 hours, with the vaunted desert rat army of Saddam Hussein surrendering and waving the white flag in a matter of 6 hours. And so these people haven't changed. The U.S. is not able to win. All we're doing is escalating, and the bad guys are far superior. And the bad guys are far smarter. And the bad guys are far more capable. And the bad guys are not going to take this. The bad guy. We have destroyed a fundamental war-making element of the Iranian government by taking this guy out. You're not going to see it anywhere in the news, but Iran has been leveled, in a sense here, strategically with the assuming of room temperature of Qasem Soleimani. Got to take a brief time out. Sit tight. We'll be back with much more after this. So during the break, Mr. Snerdley said to me, so what about this guy replacing Qasem Soleimani, the guy's room temperature? What about... He said, should we be afraid of this guy? Should we be afraid of this? This guy is the guy who's afraid to show his face. This new guy, you think he likes this gig? He's the next target. You think this guy doesn't know that we are tracking this guy in every which way we know? Let me go through, by the way, how we did this. And we have two new kinds of bombs. Remember the old neutron bomb? The left hated the neutron bomb because it killed people but left buildings, it left real estate, so billionaires would not lose anything. The left hated the neutron bomb. We've got more improved. We've got a bomb that digs down 200 feet deep to get bad guys in caves. We have a bomb that will take out a single mullah that we can aim through a window in the mullah's office building that he can't hear coming and can't see coming, and he never knows it's there. We've got ways to put this. This was a precision surgical attack on this guy's SUV. He got off the plane. He gets in the SUV. We identified before he even gets to the off-ramp at Baghdad International. He's room temperature. The only thing left is the guy's hand with an identifying ring on it. Mr. Limbaugh, you shouldn't sound so happy about it. Who says happy? I'm just responding to, do we think we need to be afraid of the new guy? They are afraid of us right now. And that's the way it ought to be. It's not hard to understand this stuff. Let me run through this. We were tracking Soleimani's jet via an AWACS, an E-3 AWACS plane, and vehicles on the ground. Soleiman and the other guy, Mohandas, had landed at Baghdad International. They just pulled off the ramp. They were in two vehicles. On a street right next to the airport, Special Forces team with a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, JTAC, positively identified Soleimani and Mohandas in the cars. The JTAC controls the release of weapons on targets, communicating with all the shooters. An armed Apache helicopter was involved a few miles away, receiving the feed from the Reaper drone overhead. It's the MQ-9. It's an Air Force Reaper. The Reaper, the drone, and the Apache helicopter carried Hellfire missiles with explosive warheads. These are not the fold-out swords that have been in the news lately. I mean, you can tell by the videos of the vehicle struck by the Hellfires that they were obliterated. The Israelis have perfected this type of engagement out of necessity with their helicopters and their drones as they have hunted Hamas and Hezbollah people. There was no doubt who was in the car. It was a Toyota Land Cruiser. We even know that. Toyota is the official vehicle of Middle East terrorists, by the way. I don't care where they are. Either flatbed
So who is
pickups,
greater?
SUVs, They get them cheap in the open market, don't know where, but you can see it in the movies. Toyota is the approved favorite. Well, they want to get an endorsement out of them. So he's in a Toyota Land Cruiser. It was his normal ride. As soon as he stepped off his jet, Special Ops and the drone identified him. The drone feed, I'll bet you, the drone feed was going to the Pentagon and wherever Trump, I'll bet Trump was watching it at Mar-a-Lago. Just as the bin Laden raid was being transmitted to the White House Situation Room. So they identified and they've launched the Hellfire missiles, and that was that. The last thing they expected. Their most recent experience with any of this is Obama and appeaser. They had a little concern about Trump. He's an unknown quantity, and they think of Trump as somebody who wants to pull the American military out of the Middle East. And then this happens. Iranian TV is showing video of the vehicles and the bodies. It's a massive operation with incredible intelligence. And see, people are asking, do we think we need to be afraid of Soleimani's replacements the other way around?
Somebody has to have the gut.
Hi, folks. Welcome back. Great to be back. Rush Limbaugh here at the one and only Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Telephone number is 800-282-2882. A reminder, President Trump will be with us for the final half hour of the program today, starting at 2:33 p.m. I say this with a caveat. Anything can happen between now and then. That would necessitate him having to give his attention elsewhere. Volatile times out there, but we confirmed, well, we've been confirming all morning, and it's still a go at 2:33 this afternoon. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. Email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Grab soundbite number 20. Mentioned this right before the end of the previous hour. CNN's New Day, Friday morning. The co-host info babe is Poppy Harlow. And she's speaking to the CNN chief international correspondent, Clarissa Ward, about the death, the sad death, of the Quds force commander, General Qasem Soleimani. Question, I don't think it can be overstated who he was, how powerful Soleimani has been, and for how long. This is not just taking out a terrorist. This is much more significant than al-Baghdadi or Osama bin Laden. Now stop and think of that for a minute. This, even now, Petraeus said it, and that's probably who she's acting. This is bigger than taking out bin Laden? You believe these people admitting Trump did something bigger than Obama did? Bin Laden? This is bigger than bin Laden? Just to give it perspective. So here is the response from the CNN chief international correspondent.
He's almost something of a living legend in Iran. And when I spent time in the capital just last year, you could see that clearly. We visited the Museum of Holy Defense. The entire gift store is full of souvenirs bearing his image. You turn on the television, look online, you see people sharing videos of him reciting poetry.
Oh,
He's attending the funerals of fighters who have been killed.
Poetry!
Not only that, he is the architect of Iran's so-called axis of resistance. This cannot be underestimated.
The people of Iran are not free. If they're in that museum, it's because they've been required to go to that museum. If they are attending a gigantic mourning ceremony, it's because they've been told to show up. They're not free like the citizens of China are not free, like the citizens of the old Soviet Union were not free, like the citizens of Cuba were not free. I don't doubt that propaganda has been used to make the guy a hero. Poetry? Come on, give me a break. But anyway, this is the flavor of it all from CNN. That was Friday. Trump took out such a wonderful guy. He was such a hero to the Iranian citizens. Oh, it's so bad. This is the kind of stuff, it just drives people crazy. And the Democrats have no idea how many Americans that they are isolating and angering with this take and all of this. I also, folks, I'm going to go back and do some just quick hits on some flashbacks here. Because remember, a lot of, it's not the sole explanation, but much of the reason for the Democrats and the left just jumping all over Trump for doing this and making it look like they feel bad for Iran. They're literally siding with a genuine enemy of the United States, all because they hate Trump. Don't forget, one of the driving reasons here is protection of the Obama legacy. Do not discount this. You know, much like a lot of conservatives will come to Reagan's defense every time he's assaulted, maligned, impugned. It's the same thing with Democrats and Obama. And one of Obama's signature policies was this deal with Iran, which, remember, one of Obama's purposes here was to make Iran an even bigger power in the Middle East, because Obama and his type believe that Israel, as the dominant power in the Middle East, is a destabilizing force, because once again, the United States is not the good guys. Our allies are not the good guys. Israel's not the good guys. As a superpower, what are we? We are discriminating bigots. We're discriminating racists. We're discriminating homophobes, or whatever the cliches are. As the gigantic superpower, we cannot be good. We cannot be benevolent. Everybody smaller than we is a victim. So the Iranians are victims, and Obama wanted to build them back up in his convoluted view of stabilizing the region. Do you realize Victor Davis Hanson has a great piece that came out, it's either today or over the break, because we have become oil independent. We become energy independent. The Middle East is no longer this giant necessity that it once was, at least to us in a strategic sense. It remains so in an allied sense. But we don't need to play nice, and we don't need to bend over, grab the ankles because we need their oil anymore, is the point. It's a big point. So just a couple of things here. First off, from a website called Arab News, Soleimani's death leaves Iran's strategy in tatters. Now, this goes back to the last hour. Snurdly asked me, hey, this guy that's replacing the dead guy, do we need to be worried about? No, this guy is who's worried about us. This guy knows he's being tracked by every tracking device our government has. This guy knows he is under constant surveillance. He knows that any act he takes that causes any harm to Americans puts a mark on him. This guy knows that he cannot run around in secret, in private, like Qasem Soleimani could not. Let me give you a couple of pull quotes from this story. The killing of Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani and Iraqi paramilitary leader Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis changes everything. With one blow, Trump has taken out the two dominant figures exporting Iranian militancy across the region. What about the mullahs, Rush? Yeah, of course, the mullahs are the figureheads here. They give the ultimate orders, but the mullahs remain hidden, protected, shielded. These guys are out actually leading and formulating strategery and all this. It's a big, big deal, and it's look at any team. Take out the head of the team, rest of the snake dies. It's true here. Another pull quote. It was Qasem Soleimani who forcefully advocated and spearheaded the policy of bogging the U.S. down in the bloody Iraqi quagmire by building a new generation of paramilitary forces which staged thousands of attacks against coalition troops, killing around 600. When the U.S. unsuccessfully sought to arrest Soleimani by attacking his convoy in Kurdistan in early 2007, he responded days later with one of the most audacious militant operations of the conflict, penetrating the coalition's Karbala headquarters in broad daylight, abducting and killing several U.S. soldiers. Yeah, that's right. We wanted to arrest him, and then following that, we were going to indict him. Like we had an arrest warrant out for Osama. This is not the way you deal with these people. Another pull quote. As arguably the second most powerful Iranian after Khamenei, that's one of the mullahs, nobody can fit into Soleimani's outsized shoes. His designated successor as commander of the Quds, Esmail Ghani, is a much lower profile figure who will lack his boss's encyclopedic network of personal contacts and knowledge of a generation of Iranian militancy. This is like the practice squad quarterback being thrown into the game, folks. Should we be afraid of the guy, Mr. Limp? No. I don't mean you ignore, but there's no reason to be on defense here. Oh my God, we're feeling so... We attacked, oh my God, we're going to get wiped out. It's not the attitude that we have. Final pull quote. By killing Qasem Soleimani, the U.S. has decapitated the principal agent of Iran's strategy for regional hegemony, bringing an end to a long phase of Iran-branded militancy dominated by the Quds Force commander personally. No other global terrorist boasts Soleimani's longevity in overseeing thousands of troops and attacks over 4 decades. He lived by the sword and died a fitting death. His passing should not be mourned. We are in uncharted territory. How Tehran's regime chooses to respond in the coming days will have reverberations in the region for years to come. That's Arab news. Now let's do some flashbacks, shall we? I have here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers a story from the Hudson Institute, hudson.org, July 14th, 2015. It's by Lee Smith. You know who Lee Smith is? Lee Smith wrote one of the definitive books that broke down the coup run against Donald Trump. Steele dossier, the Trump-Russia coup, all Lee Smith is one of the... He worked very closely with Devin Nunes. There are a bunch of people, Chuck Ross, a bunch of people, a lot of great work. Lee Smith was among the top of the tier here in discovering what had happened, the FBI informants, the tricks they had played against Papadopoulos and so forth, the way they had spied on the Trump administration. That's the author of this piece. Headline, Obama strikes a deal with Qasem Soleimani. According to the terms of the Iran deal announced in Vienna on Tuesday, UN Security Council sanctions regarding nuclear-related issues will be lifted on a number of entities and individuals, from Iranian banks to Lebanese assassins. The name that most sticks out is Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani. Obama officials counsel calm and explain that Soleimani's still on the terror list, and he'll remain on the terror list, but that's irrelevant. The reality is that Soleimani is the key to the Iranian nuclear deal. It soon became apparent the White House wasn't really balancing it all, but had rather chosen one team over the others, Iran. Obama made his preference for Iran and its allies clear in Lebanon, Syria, and most obviously in Iraq, where the White House ordered airstrikes on ISIS positions that allowed various Iranian outfits under the leadership of Soleimani to take Tikrit. In other words, Obama enabled this guy to take Tikrit, which was the hometown of Saddam Hussein, by the way. His name was Saddam Hussein al-Tikrit. Al-Tikrit from Tikrit. The deal is with the hard men of the regime, the extremists. The Iran deal is with Qasem Soleimani. There could be no similar argument about buying and selling and smuggling arms, since ending the embargo can only help the hardliners. In other words, Lee Smith's piece here from July 14, 2015, spells out the Obama nuclear deal was with this guy, that he was one of the leading Iranian officials in the deal who benefited both personally and professionally. From the UK Telegraph, the date of this story is, July 15th, 2015. Obama's Iran deal has just granted an amnesty to the world's leading terrorist mastermind, Qasem Soleimani. The Obama administration and this guy were thick. They were associates. He was the central figure in the Iran deal. As head of the Quds Force in Iran's Revolutionary Guards, Qasem Soleimani is widely regarded as one of the world-leading terrorists. Now Barack Obama has effectively granted him an amnesty by doing the Iran deal. That's who the guy is. This is, look, get mad at me all you want. This is who he was, and this is how the Obama administration dealt with him. Do not doubt me. The Obama administration looked at Iran as needing to be built up in order to stabilize the region because, in their view, Israel, as the dominant power, destabilized the Middle East, just as, in their view, the United States, as a lone superpower, destabilized the world. Look, folks, you can doubt me all you want, but it was Obama himself that began talking about how the United States was in a necessary era of decline, economically and otherwise. It was time to pay the piper, time to pay dues. We had benefited, become a superpower, maybe in some unjust ways. And that's what the Democrats and the American left of today have now decided they have to protect. If they let the Obama legacy get properly defined, and if it ends up in tatters, what have they got? They've got very little as it is now, because the Obama legacy, as far as average Americans are concerned, is blowing up and destroying health care, a putrid economy, and a promise that it was not going to get better. Let me take a break. We'll come back, and I promise this. Phone calls. We'll get started with them right after we get back. I interviewed a story. Greetings. Welcome back, Rush Limbaugh. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Okay. As promised, we'll start on the phones in Hermosa Beach, California. Scott, welcome, sir. It's great to have you here with us.
Oh, Rush. Mega Deals from sunny Southern California. Rush, I wanted to ask you, if Iran retaliates and kills a bunch of innocent Americans, do you think that will give Trump and the United States just cause and a good enough reason to take out and destroy Iran's nuclear capability?
Well, I mean, the short answer to the question is yes, but I don't think it's as look, Iran right now does not have. I know what you mean by their nuclear capability. Right now, best of my knowledge, they haven't yet literally fortified a warhead on a missile with a nuclear warhead. They're working toward it. The Iran deal enabled that and accelerated it. But yeah, Trump has told them, folks, this is classic. The Iranians respond, okay, there are 21 targets that we're looking at. Trump tweets, well, I've got 52 of yours. I don't know how to say this other than to say it. The Iranians have not dealt with an American president like this. Whatever you think, if that's good or bad, they have not dealt. The Middle East is used to the current, is used to the Obama foreign policy establishment. And it's typified by that soundbite I played, that montage. They are aware, they are used to dealing with Americans who accept casualties like those handed out by Soleimani. They expect to deal with an America that is accustomed and okay with being abused and taken advantage of by the United Nations. They're used to dealing with a country that does not retaliate. I mean, this guy Soleimani has single-handedly been responsible for over 600 U.S. military deaths. There was no attempt to retaliate against him. They are accustomed to that. I don't know if they think the United States a paper tiger, if they think the United States, they have to take us seriously. Our ability to project power is unlike any other nation on earth. I mean, don't misunderstand me. They take that seriously. But in terms of dealing with somebody like Trump, he's a foreign object to them. I mean, look at who the Iranians are. Death to America, death to America, death to America. And the Democrat Party picks up the chant in one way or the other. Remember the old, the former president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad? This guy criticizing the United States sounded exactly like any Democrat in a presidential campaign. So I think that it is the Iranians who are going to be careful about what they do in response to this, in consideration for what Trump might do next. And that, I think, is something they haven't had to factor as seriously before. Okay, just got another glaring example of what I have been talking about all morning, why I am thankful for Twitter. Today, I want to put something up on the Ditto Cam. I can adequately describe this for those of you who are not watching on the Ditto Cam and can't see this. It looks like the national security reporter for the Washington Post, a woman by the name of Missy Ryan, has posted two pictures in a tweet. On the left is a picture of Tehran today, people mourning the death of Qasem Soleimani. On the right is a picture of an empty Washington Mall during Trump's inauguration. And the quote that she has typed, Tehran today versus Trump's inauguration crowd. Rachel Bade, who is a colleague, tweeted out the photo that looked like they were celebrating Trump's impeachment with the caption, Merry Impeachment. Well, this is the same dynamic duo. So what they're doing here, they've got this on the left is supposedly Tehran today, which I just said, that crowd is there because they've been commanded to be there. The people of Tehran, the people of Iran are not free. For crying out loud, the Islamic Republic, this is a country where you get beheaded. If you are given orders by the government, don't do it. This is a country that beheads transgenders. It beheads homosexuals when it finds them. And the American left is coming out in support of this regime. This is how convoluted, sick they've become. This is a regime that kills every type of lifestyle that the American left wants to promote and celebrate in this country. They get murdered. They get hunted down. They get imprisoned. They are beheaded in Iran. And that's who the left thinks is preferable to Donald Trump. So they've got these two side-by-side pictures of the Trump inauguration with the entire Washington Mall there. It looks like about half full. And then the similar place in Tehran teeming with an overflow crowd in honor of the man Trump killed. Perspective, Tehran today versus Trump's inauguration crowd. So the conclusion is, see, this guy was more popular than Trump is. This guy, Trump took out somebody, Trump's jealous. Trump took this guy out. The Iranians are much, much more sympathetic for their dead leader than blah, 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 blah. It's a side-by-side comparison of Iran good, United States bad. Mullah's good, Trump bad. Mullah terrorist popular, Trump unpopular. I mean, it is just... Now, we'll post the picture at rushlimbaugh.com for those of you not watching a Ditto Cam, but that's the description. Back to the phones we go. This is Bobby in Washington. Great to have you, sir. Welcome to the program. Bobby hung up. Well, don't take it off the screen. What Bobby was going to say was the Iranians did the best thing they could have done. They posted pictures of Trump's properties. A threat now. Democrats can say anything Trump does is personal. He thinks this was a smart move by the Iranians. So the Iranians have posted a picture of Mar-a-Lago. They posted Trump Tower. They posted pictures of all of Trump's golf courses. I assume this guy means his targets. And he thinks it's brilliant. It's brilliant for the Iranians to post pictures for their murdering terrorists in sleeper cells, if there are any. These are Trump's targets. Go hit them. And that the Democrats can now say that anything Trump does in defense is personal. He thinks it's a brilliant play by Tehran because after posting the pictures, any further action Trump takes, they can say is personal and not related to national security. And old Bobby in Washington, who didn't hang on when he knew he was coming up next, thought that that was a pretty good move on the part of the Iranians. As though they have to post pictures of Trump's properties. Like nobody knows where Mar-a-Lago is, and nobody knows what Mar-a-Lago looks like. And nobody's ever seen Trump Tower. Nobody's ever seen Trump's golf course in Bedminster. Nobody's ever seen any of Trump's. The Iranians are really brilliant now because any action Trump takes following the pictures of his properties being posted can be said to be personal. This is typical. This is somebody who wants Trump to lose this engagement. And by extension, the United States to lose this engagement. Look, you know, this is why Twitter is valuable today, because I don't have to say it. I have been saying it. What's bad for America is good for the Democrats and vice versa. What's good for America is bad for the Democrats. They're actively, and by the way, folks, I'm not exaggerating here. When Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was invited to give a speech at Columbia, you know why he was? Because he was ripping Bush. And the administration at Columbia University loved Bush being ripped, so they invite Ahmadinejad. They invited Hugo Chavez as well. It was during the United Nations annual meeting in September and October. So they bring Ahmadinejad over. And he makes his anti-American, pro-Iranian speech about how they're loving and they're compassionate, filled with all the language designed to fool a bunch of brainwashed liberal students. And they open it up to Q&A. And somebody in the audience asks Ahmadinejad about homosexuals and homosexuality in Iran. And Ahmadinejad said, well, we don't have any homosexuals in Iran. And the audience had some pockets erupt in laughter. Not everybody, because some were scared of the guy. But people erupted in laughter when Ahmadinejad said, we don't have any homosexuals in Iran. And when the audience began laughing, Ahmadinejad said, oh, do you know some? Could you tell me where they live? So this regime literally does put to death known homosexuals, and now I'm sure transgenders. And if somebody wants to take, you know, a goat or a sheep behind the barn and the Iranian government finds out about it, those people are done. And this is who the American left is siding with. By the way, did you hear about the guy trying to join a country club out in California? Rural California. There's a country club. I think it's, I forget where it is. And he wanted to join, and the club president, look, we've got a problem with you. The word's gotten out that you have been known on your property to have very improper relationships behind your barn with goats and sheep and chickens. And the guy said, chickens? And we'll be back.
Unfiltered and
Hey, somehow, we got Bobby back from Washington, D.C., so let me have him tell you in his own words what his point is. Welcome back, Bobby. Great to have you here.
Hey, thank you, Rush. Sorry, I got disconnected. Yeah, so I think that was extremely smart on the Iranians. I'm not going to belabor the points you've already made. But what I wanted to say was after the Iranians attack and we counterattack, this will be Ukraine 2.0 after Trump wins the 2020 election.
Okay, wait, hold on a minute. It's my hearing. I need you to slow down just a bit. So you're acknowledging I explained your first point on that smart for the Iranians to post pictures of Trump's property. Now you're moving on. You say after the Iranians attack and we counterattack, this will be Ukraine 2.0 after Trump wins. So they'll impeach Trump over this, you think, in 2020?
Yes, and I think the president needs to be careful on Twitter. Anything he says that can be viewed as him taking this personally will be used against him in his second impeachment trial. Because, like you acknowledged, the Democrats are never going to stop. They're going to continue to try to do whatever they can to get him removed from office. And I think this will be the Ukraine 2.0 after he's reelected, because they will say it is personal and he's doing it to protect his business entities across the world.
Perhaps. I don't think that they're going to wait to use this for after 2020. I fully expect, well, no, let me rephrase. I'm not going to be surprised if they make a move to reopen the impeachment inquiry in the House. They've been met with a cold shoulder on having new witnesses in a Senate trial. Pelosi hadn't even sent the articles over. Pelosi's not going to send the articles over as long as there's going to be an acquittal. I have explained this. I don't know how many times. There's nothing in it for her to send these things. Even if there's a trial, if there's a trial, there's going to be an acquittal. And they're not going to get a conviction while Trump is engaged in this Iranian stuff. Not with Republicans running the Senate. It just isn't going to happen. I don't care what the Democrats think. The Republicans are not going to vote to kick a president out of office in the midst of something like this, doing something that needs to be done, protecting national security and all of that. So Pelosi's only gambit here, she can only take it so far to blame all of this on Republican partisan. She can get as much mileage probably as she already has out of trying to blame McConnell and the Republicans for being partisan and unfair and unjust and all that. So what would be left would be to find a reason to reopen the House inquiry. The impeachment can happen anytime they want it to. It hasn't happened much in this country because, strange as this may sound, it actually has not been a political weapon. It was not designed as a political weapon. The Democrats have turned it into that now. Since they have crossed that barrier, since they have now corrupted the entire original intent of impeachment, what is to stop them? They can impeach Trump for anything they want if they can get the votes for it. And in the House, they clearly can. So Schiff or some other committee chairman can open hearings on whether or not Trump is usurping his power by not consulting Congress in ordering military action, say, against Soleimani or anything else that might happen in any theater of military operations. Nothing to stop them from doing this other than common sense and political restraint, which they have demonstrated they have none. So I don't think, Bobby, they will wait until 2020 to use this to try to get rid of Trump. They're already talking about making noise, about limiting Trump's options. Now the House is going to go back into gear soon here, and Pelosi and her people are talking already about legislation and shoring up the War Powers Act and all that could limit Trump's options and ability. The one thing you're right about, which needs to be stated again, Trump wins re-election 2020. They're not going to stop this. They're going to continue to try to impeach, impede, slow down, can't say retard anymore, his presidential progress. All of which he knows, by the way. Bobby, thanks much. This is John in Amarillo, Texas. Great to have you with us, sir. Hello.
Hey, Rush. Thank you for taking my call. I'll be brief. I served in the Persian Gulf in the early 80s when Iran and Iraq were duking it out. Oil tankers were attacked, sea lanes were mined. Nothing has changed over there. My point is this. Trump had every legal right to take this salami guy out. What about Clinton's actions in Kosovo? What about Obama's actions in Libya? Why is it that Democrat presidents get carte blanche and suddenly Trump is a law-breaking traitor? I watch several news outlets, and the hypocrisy in reporting is astounding. I'm not concerned one iota about Iran.
Your point is extremely shrewd, and it's a question we've been asking for years. The Democrats got to wait because, well, the short answer to your question is the media. And the media has ceased being, the media's constituency now actually is government. Whereas the media used to think of themselves as the watchdog of government, making sure to ride heavy on power to make sure they were kept in check, the Democrats have now become part of the power in the media. In their own minds, they're part of the establishment.
Yes.
And now they run protection schemes for it rather than to expose it. Trump is an enemy of the establishment, and therefore there are two different standards. There's two legal systems if Trump's involved. There's two sets of policies or standards for government operations, Democrat versus Republican. I had a guy send me a note last night right along the lines of your thinking here. He said the very media that attacked George Bush, W., for not reading the tea leaves prior to 9/11 is now attacking Trump for having read the tea leaves on salami, as you said.
Yes.
But it's exactly true. After 9/11, what the Democrats, they bumped all over Trump, or Bush, after 2 weeks of solidarity went by. They then said that Bush screwed up by not reading what was clearly seeable in the intel that bin Laden was going to hit. So Trump, look, Soleimani was planning something. We don't know what, but it was big because he had to go back and get the approval of the mullahs. He had something on his mind, some operation going to be huge. It's one of the reasons Trump hit the guy. This wasn't personal.
No.
This wasn't because this guy rejected a membership offer at Mar-a-Lago or something like that. No, what it was, this guy was planning something huge, and Trump got wind of it and read the tea leaves and took him out in advance. So kudos to Trump, and that's the real problem they've got. Trump looked brilliant here. Trump looked sharp. Trump looked with it. The intel.
Exactly.
So your line of thinking is right. I'll tell you the one thing conflicting me on this, folks. This is the same intelligence community that gave Trump, well, no, it's not. I take that back. John Brennan and Clapper had nothing to do with this intel. I mean, if you're Trump, how do you trust the intelligence community now? Seriously, how do you trust them? Given what they did in trying to take him out of office with this phony Russia meddling coup and all that. He's obviously very satisfied and confident, trustworthy of the people in the intelligence community now. My friends, it has happened again. I just offered what I thought to you would happen. I made a prediction. Lo and behold, here is a tweet from thehill.com. Are you ready? Breaking news, Adam Schiff calls for open hearings on Trump's Iran actions. What did I tell you? They're gonna fold this in to their overall impeachment move. Anyway, got to take a brief break here at the top. The president in a half hour from now. Don't go away. Once again, greetings to you, music lovers, thrill seekers, conversationalists all across the fruited plain. It's El Rushmo, the all-knowing, all-caring, all-sensing, all-feeling, all-concerned, all-everything Maharishi. Here behind, the one and only Golden EIB. Mike, great to have you here. Telephone number 800-282-2882. For those of you who may have missed it. So just in the last 25 minutes, I had a call from a guy talking about how he thinks that if the Iranians have posted pictures of Trump's property, then anything Trump does to the Iranians after that makes it personal, not national security. Brilliant move of the Iranians, he thinks. That would then become the reason that the Democrats would impeach Trump after he wins re-election 2020. I said, they're not going to wait for that. In fact, because Pelosi's articles of impeachment are going to go nowhere, she cannot follow through with this and get an acquittal. That just that destroys the whole effort. The only thing she can do is wait and delay and use the presentation of the articles to say blunt some other news event like the release of the Durham investigation 6 months from now, whatever that is. I said what's more than likely to happen is that the Democrats will reopen this current impeachment process and use whatever Trump's done in Iran as evidence that he is committing high crimes and misdemeanors, needs to be reined in, needs to be stopped. Less than 5 minutes after I said that, tweet from thehill.com, breaking news, Adam Schiff calls for open hearings on Trump's Iran actions. Do not doubt me, my friends. Now, Schiff's committee is the Intelligence Committee. So the Democrats want to begin hearings on Trump's actions because remember, the premise for all of this is that Trump is not legitimate. It's the only arguments Democrats can make. It's what they made against George W. Bush after the Florida recount. In their view, Trump is illegitimate because he stole the election with Russia's help. Oh, come on, Rush, the Mueller report. It doesn't matter what the Mueller report says. I'm telling you what the Democrats have chosen to operate under. The premise that Trump stole the election, that it was unfair, it was Hillary's, and that Trump colluded with the Mueller report. So it doesn't matter what the Mueller report says. The Democrats are making up their own news. Their media is making up their own news. That's why it's fake news. On what basis does Adam Schiff have the reason to investigate Trump's conduct in Iran, this operation? Schiff's got nothing to say about it. The whole premise is he was not just in making that move because his presidency is illegitimate on the basis of the proof they think that they have elucidated. Anyway, this all started, as you'll recall, with an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. And I have to tell you, folks, one of the terrorists, not Salami, as our caller called him. I understand it's tough to get these guys' names right, so just come up with a word that sounds similar, and we'll all know what you mean. So, Qasem Salami, the Quds Force general, one of the people involved in the attack had, in fact, a meeting in the Oval Office with Obama. Were you aware of this? It was another thing that Twitter pointed out. Now, when I saw that, I'll be honest with you. My first. Wait a minute, folks. I just hang on just a second here. I got to do this. I just got a message here from somebody at the White House. He's going to be calling in soon. Please remind him it's 2:33. If he wants to come on sooner, that's fine, but make sure I know. Sorry about that. Anyway, when I saw this, the U.S. Embassy, and then I saw the tweet that the guy, one of the people, not Salami, but one of the guys involved in the attack, had a meeting with Obama, my head started spinning, the gears. And I said, what if this whole thing, and I quickly rejected it, but I said, what if this whole thing is a setup? I mean, who's in that embassy? The same kind of people testified against Trump in the Schiff committee. I mean, it doesn't take long once you learn who these people are and how they operate, and the lengths that they have been willing to go to manufacture things that did not happen, made to look like they did happen. My initial thought was that this whole thing was a setup designed to entrap Trump somehow. But obviously that wasn't the case, but that's just how I have been conditioned to think of the, whatever you want to call it, the deep state or the establishment and how they operate. Here is another tweet. This is from somebody in, I'm not sure. It looks like it's somebody from inside Iran. And again, it's Twitter, which is a sewer that has value on some days, like in the past 2 or 3. Here's the tweet. The Islamic Republic propaganda is trying to tell the world that salami was popular. As an Iranian living inside Iran, I want the world to know the majority of us hated him, and we are delighted for his death. This is somebody identified as Miss Marpel on Twitter. And there's a photo. But I don't know if it's legitimate or not, because Twitter's like anything. Anybody can lie and make anything up. We have traced and documented how they do it. The Islamic Republic propaganda trying to tell the world that salami was popular. This is exactly right, though. All these photos of the mourners gathering, outnumbering the number of people at the Trump inauguration. Look, there's other things happening out there besides this. There are two. I'm going to ask the president about these. I'm going to give you a little heads up. But one of these stories is from the Issues and Insight website, editorial board. Trump is quietly winning big at the border. And it's true. I don't know if you've noticed, there's so many other things going on, but have you seen there aren't any caravans? There aren't any massive numbers anymore of people traveling from El Salvador and Guatemala up to Mexico, demanding asylum, demanding amnesty, demanding to be, they're just down. The caravans didn't work, and I'm certain they were put up jobs. They were bought and paid for by Democrat donors. I have no doubt about this. But the administration has been very quiet in beating its chest over this success, because the number of people trying to get into the country illegally is way, way down. And it's fascinating because Trump made a big deal out of building the wall. Mexico was going to pay for the wall, but there was going to be a wall. Well, there isn't a wall, and yet there may as well be one. There may as well be a virtual wall, because something is preventing massive illegal immigration. It has really dipped. So the Democrats block Trump from doing the wall. He finds a workaround that's probably more effective and cost less, and it's called enforcing the law. The one thing people do not understand about those of us who oppose illegal immigration has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with skin color, has nothing to do with economics, nothing whatsoever to do with any of that. It has to do with 2 things, maybe 3. 1, the rule of law. It's simply illegal. The other, well, the second thing is the damage to the culture. There is no assimilation on the part of most people coming into the country illegally. As such, it represents an assault on a distinct and unique American culture, which is fundamentally responsible for America's status in the world and the greatness of the American experiment, the American standard of living, American lifestyles. Preserving this distinct American culture is nothing. There's nothing racist about it. There's nothing bigoted about it. It's based on love. And, of course, the third thing is the Democrats see this as a massive voter registration drive, and that's another reason why we oppose it. It has nothing to do with the left's usual assaults. You just don't like brown-skinned people. You just don't like people you don't like people who don't speak English. It has nothing to do with any of that. That's not why illegal immigration is opposed. It's against the law, number one. The rule of law counts for something. If we're not going to enforce that law, then what other laws are we not going to enforce down the road? Anyway, it is a big story, details of which will come up, but Trump is quietly winning big at the border. And I'll tell you something else is healthcare. You know how healthcare is revitalizing this country, not just in terms of healthcare, but the way the administration is dealing with the healthcare industry as a job creator. You realize that healthcare companies many of them are causing revitalizations of American urban areas. And it's a big secret, nobody much talking about it. But it's a big deal. And a lot of this stuff is going on under the radar because impeachment and the coup and other things are occupying everybody's attention. While all that's going on, the Trump administration is busy accomplishing serious things. Hey, folks, sleep is essential for good health. Some people need more sleep than others to maintain good health. My uncle, who is 93, said 8 hours. You need 8. I said, I think I can get by on 6.5%. You need 8. Who's to argue with him? He's 93, doesn't look a day over 60. Well, whatever number of hours you need every night to feel rested, make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you fall asleep when you go to bed. Isn't that the objective? Well, that's most of the time you go to bed, you want to fall asleep. And one of the ways to help this happen is a new set of Boll & Branch sheets. Nearly every Boll & Branch customer surveyed who has experience sleeping on Boll & Branch sheets, 97% of them, say they get a better night's rest with Boll & Branch sheets. Now, you might be skeptical. Come on, Rush, you're unconscious. How do you possibly know? That's the whole point. You're unconscious. You get in bed, they feel luxuriously great. You'll notice the difference. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are now Boll & Branch sheet customers, and they will tell you they're the softest, the most comfortable sheets you'll ever feel. They only get softer over time. They are made with pure 100% organic cotton, and you get 30 nights to try them. Full money-back guarantee. If you don't like them, if they're not soft as I tell you they are, send them back, and you get all of your money back. You got nothing to lose by trying them. Shipping is always free, and $50 off your first set when you use my name. Checkout process, bollandbranch.com, BOLLN branch.com. A reminder, President Trump coming up at 2:33. That's, 9.5 minutes from now. And we go back to the phones. This is Dave in Buffalo. Welcome, sir. Great to have you on the EIB Network. Hello.
Rush, I thank you for taking my call. It's an honor to speak to you for a second time. Just one quick question. How long can Nancy Pelosi hold on to these articles of impeachment? I'm afraid what she's going to do is she's going to hold on to them until December 2020 after Trump is reelected, and she's possibly hoping that the Senate will turn to Democrat, and then she can successfully impeach him and remove him.
Look, these theories that people have, any of them could be possible because we're dealing with the mind of Pelosi. And I don't think that mind knows from day to day what it's going to do and how it's going to deal with this, because I think she's waiting for... This has gone beyond where she intended it. The reason she did this was to save her speakership. The reason she did this was to fend off these wackos from the squad, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the rest of them. Because at the beginning of this, it's always been known the Senate is going to acquit. There's no reason to do this. Unless you can get some kind of really valuable, long-lasting, negative public relations hit. But that's wiped out with like they can't imagine right now on the presidential side. The Democrats are losing voters massively in these suburban and rural areas of Wisconsin. Have you noticed Florida is now gone red? It's pretty much not in play. Ohio is the same. The 3 states that catapulted Trump are still where the action is, and the Democrats are not rescuing themselves in the areas of those states that Trump won. It's getting worse for them. And it doesn't help. And Biden's out there telling coal miners, well, get into coding, for God's sake. When I shut down your coal mine, learn coding, for God's sake. He always says, for God's sake, this, or God bless it, or God whatever it. I know everybody thinks he's going to be the nominee. You seen a picture lately slap me? Bring it on is the point. Hey, my friends, data breaches, excuse me, data breaches happen more often than you will ever hear about. That actually is true. When there are big ones, they eventually announce them some months later. But companies of all sizes become victims. Sometimes it's by the efforts of a cyber hacker, other times negligence, protecting their own database. Facebook experienced this in late December. The data of 260 million Facebook users had their names and phone numbers and Facebook IDs exposed. The data was left unsecured on the web for 2 weeks. These kinds of data breaches, they happen regularly. They could include your information. The best way to protect yourself, if you happen to be on these lists, and the odds are increasing that we all will be, you need identity theft protection, and there's nowhere else better to get it than LifeLock. LifeLock, the absolute leaders in watching for your identity suddenly showing up in the wrong hands. They've got ways of learning that before anybody else does and letting you know that it has possibly happened. LifeLock employs experts that help you restore your good name and credit should you become a victim of identity theft. Now, no one company can prevent all identity theft, but I'm telling you, folks, LifeLock provides the best protection and restoration help that there is. Sign up at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. And make sure to use my name when you do. You'll save 25% off your first year's plan. 25%, not 10. 25% off at LifeLock.com. Break coming up. The President of the United States immediately after when we get back. Welcome back to EIB Network and Rush Limbaugh back at it after a couple of weeks off for Christmas. Not much happening. We are happy to have here with us the President of the United States, Donald Trump. It's so great to have you back here, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Rush, very much.
Okay, I have had a lot of people say to me, they're reacting to the media reaction of the action we took, that you took, against the Quds Force commander in Iran. Mr. President, people are being scared to death. Their kids are being scared to death out of their minds that somehow this is going to start World War III. That we are now more unsafe than we have ever been. Could you explain to people why what you've done here makes us safer, why it was necessary, and why what we did was right?
Well, this should have been done for the last 15 to 20 years. Him in particular. He was their real military leader. He's a terrorist. He was designated a terrorist by President Obama. And then Obama did nothing about it except give them $150 billion and even more incredibly, $1.8 billion in cash. You hear me talking about that all the time, and you talk about it all the time. He gave him all this money. He never wanted to do anything about it. President Bush should have taken him out. He is responsible for the IEDs. Those are the roadside bombs and bombs that blow up all over the place. And then the sister, which is the big one, the big version, that actually knocks out tanks and kills everybody within earshot. A really horrible weapon. He's responsible for all those incredible young people over at Walter Reed, where they do such a great job, by the way, and where they lose their arms and their legs. You know, he gave so much of that technology. Much of that stuff was made in Iran. And he should have been taken out a long time ago. And we had a shot at it, and we took him out. And we're a lot safer now because of it. Now, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the response is, if any. But you've seen what I said our response will be.
Well, yeah.
Our country is a lot safer, Rush.
They said they got 21 targets they're looking at, and you came back and said, fine, I got 52 of yours. I don't think that they are accustomed to a president like you, sir. I mean, you just mentioned it. Obama basically appeased them. Obama worked with this guy on the Iranian nuclear deal. What a lot of things have to surprise you when you assumed office and found out some things been done previously in policy. What was the purpose of American policy with Iran prior to your presidency?
I don't think they had a purpose. I don't think they knew what was happening. Why did he give him $150 billion, much of it going back into terror? And you look at what's happening. They tried to do with appeasement, and I can tell you the Logan Act, if there was ever an act that should have been used, they should have looked at the Obama administration and John Kerry, the Logan Act, because what he was doing with Iran and the relationship that they built up and the things that he said, I would certainly love to see that be looked at, because I think John Kerry was personally, I think he was advising them. I think that the Obama administration was just letting them get away with murder, in the true sense murder. And, right after they made the deal, it wasn't like they were respected. They treated the United States worse than ever before. In fact, I said at least give him a little respect, because they got worse. They actually got more hostile. They took the $150 billion, and they took the $1.8 billion in cash, and they got worse. And if you remember, right before the payment was made, they took 10 sailors and they humiliated those sailors, and they humiliated our country with the sailors down on their knees. And the only reason they released them was they wanted their first payment. It was just before the payment. If they had taken them after they got the money, they would have never released them. They'd be there now. Well, they wouldn't be there now with me, but they would be there for a long period of time. But you remember the 10 sailors that were 15 feet across the line. Probably they weren't. They don't even know if they were in Iranian waters. But they said they were slightly in Iranian waters, so they humiliated them. But they released them because the money was due the following day. And they said, oh, we don't want to, hey, why should they turn down $150 billion over the 10 sailors? But they humiliated those sailors and our country.
Well, he also lifted sanctions on Soleimani as part of the Iran deal. And it looks like, to me anyway, that that administration looked at building Iran up as some way stabilizing the region, as though Israel's not the good guys, as though we're not the good guys, that Iran needs to be made stronger. This is what they believed. Otherwise, that whole region is kind of a tinderbox. But the thing that really is true about this is the Middle East has changed in priority because of the massive improvements made in domestic energy in the United States. We're no longer dependent on that region.
Right. Well, it's right. And one of the things that changed, I know you talk about it, if you go back 10 years or 8 years or maybe even 5 years, Israel was the king of the Congress, right? Our Congress protected Israel and fought for Israel. Now you look at the way the Democrats in Congress are treating, where you have AOC and you have Tlaib and you have Omar, and they are actually, anti-Semitic. They are totally against Israel. The things that they've said, you go back to the past and you look at the things that they've said about Israel and Jewish people. It's incredible. 10 years ago, that would have been unacceptable. It would have been, nobody could have even believed it. I still can't believe it. I'm a little bit old-fashioned, right, in that sense, because I've grown up and there was always great protection and reverence for Israel. And now it's the opposite. In the Democrats, it's almost a negative. They're going out, and what they do for Tlaib and what they do for Omar, Representative Omar, Minnesota, and AOC, I think it's incredible the way they talk about Israel. It just was unthinkable to do that 10 years ago and sooner.
I actually think that you've had a role in driving them even more insane than they were. And let me give you some evidence. Let's go back to the day you came down the escalator and announced your candidacy. You announced the slogan, Make America Great Again, and all of a sudden, Make America Great Again becomes some wildly controversial prospect. And I'm asking myself, what in the world is controversial at all? How can anybody disagree with America being great, becoming great, remaining great? And yet it was. How do you explain that?
Well, you know, politics has changed a lot over the last couple of years. For instance, I want low taxes. They want to raise your taxes. How do you think that works? I couldn't win as a politician. I don't think Abe Lincoln could win as a politician. Borders, they want open borders. When you see the people that we're sending back and we're capturing now at record levels, these are, in many cases, they're murderers and they're people, they're drug dealers, and it's incredible. They want open borders. That means all of these people are going to be pouring in. And, of course, good ones will come in, too. But you have tremendous numbers of really bad people, including murderers and rapists and others. They want open borders. They want sanctuary cities. They don't want a strong military based on everything. I mean, we have to fight like crazy to get the strong military, and we have to give up things that we wouldn't give up if we had the House, as an example, if we were able to have enough. You know, we've always needed their vote because it was always very close. In fact, the first 2 years, we had a very, tiny majority, so we always needed their votes. But when you see they want higher taxes, right? They want much more regulation. I cut regulations more than any president in history by far, even though they were there for 4 and 8 years, and in one case more than that. We've got the all-time record. That was probably as important or more important as the tax cuts, the biggest, including Ronald Reagan, the biggest tax cut we've ever had. And we're actually taking in more revenue now than we did when we had the higher taxes because the economy is doing so well. But, when you see them with open borders, Rush, you say, and sanctuary cities and all of these other things, you say, where are they coming from? Well, Israel's sort of the same. I put that in that same category. They're as far as I'm concerned, they're anti-Israel, totally anti-Israel.
Well, it's always perplexed me that you have drawn them out. They have now, with Twitter in the past 2 or 3 days since the attack on Soleimani, you've literally had the Democrat Party and elements of that party openly supporting Iran, an enemy of the United States, openly supporting the terrorist actions of that country. And this is a country that beheads homosexuals and transgenders and has no human rights for the very constituency the Democrat Party claims to represent. Yet here they are tweeting their support for these people, simply in opposition to you.
That's amazing. Like, as an example, take the wall. They were always for the wall. And then I wanted it, and they went against. In fact, I said if I had it to do again, I would have come out totally against the wall, and I would have gotten their votes, okay? All I had to do is come out against the wall. I am opposed to building the wall, and we would have gotten all the votes we needed. No, it's almost like they'll try and do whatever is the opposite. I think they've lost their minds, you want to know the truth. I really do. It's a terrible thing to say. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Like even the impeachment hoax, you take a look at that, and they have nothing. They have nothing. With one of the biggest investigations in history, they found nothing. The Mueller report, they found absolutely, think of it. They spent $45 million, 2 years. It's a hoax. They spent all of that time, all of that money, had brilliant people that happened to be, very, very, they were crazed. They were crazed. I mean, these people were dying to find something on Trump. They found nothing. I think there's very few people that you've ever met who could have had that. They had so many investigators. They were calling people that I haven't seen in years, and they got nothing. Think of that. Nothing. Very few people. And by the way, I'm sure they looked at my taxes. They looked at everything you had to look at. They looked at everything. And $45 million, and much more than that in the true sense. In the real sense, it was much more than that. And they had 18. I used to call them 13 angry Democrats, but they increased it to 18 angry Democrats.
Whole party.
And smart, and very smart. Many were tied up with Clinton. They were involved with Clinton. But these people couldn't find anything on Trump. They would have loved, if I had a parking ticket, it would have been a major story. They found nothing. Even I was very impressed with how clean I am, Rush.
You ought to be. You may be cleaner than any previous president that we can think of. Anyway, I got to take a quick time out. We have President Trump with us for the remaining part of the program, the last of the half hour, and we'll continue with him right after this.
Doing the work that the mainstream.
And we are back with President Trump. You mentioned the impeachment hoax. Nancy Pelosi has not delivered these 2 articles of impeachment that are, frankly, they're both of them jokes. What do you suspect is happening here with this? What is the politics of this? What are they trying to achieve here? I mean, I know throw you out of office and all, but what's the point here not sending these articles over?
Well, I think what they're trying to do is affect the election illegally, but that's what they're trying to do. But the reason that they're not sending it because they are a joke. They are not crimes. There is nothing there. They found nothing. We went through 2 years of a Mueller report. You know that better than anybody. Nobody covered it better. And we went through 2 years.
I think I'm more frustrated by it than you are. You've had to deal with it, but it makes a lot of us livid that this is there because there's nothing. Everything to this has been made up. It's worse than a hoax. The first part of it was a coup, and this is just a continuation of it.
Yeah, it's so sad for our country. I mean, think of it. We're fighting with Iran. We're fighting with all of these different places, and in many cases doing great, making trade deals and doing so good. Our country is doing so good. But I have to spend, and my team has to spend time on this stuff. They found nothing. Just think of that for 2 years, and an unlimited budget, unlimited talent, and they found nothing. And they come up with two articles that aren't even a crime.
Well, there was nothing to find. It was all made up. I mean, that's the frustrating thing here. It was all made. There was nothing to find. There was nothing to investigate.
They created a situation that was false, that was fraudulent, and then they investigated the false fraudulent situation, and they found nothing. It's hard to believe. The whole thing's hard to believe. And now on top of it, they come up with 2 articles, and they put it before. Now, what happened is she doesn't want to get a vote, because how could anybody possibly? It's totally partisan. You know, this was not what they had in mind, as they call them, the founders, right? They keep saying the founders. But the founders didn't have this in mind. You understand. It's like I've never heard the word founders so much in my life. But
they don't have anything in common with the founders anyway.
Yeah. You know, we got 196 or 197 to nothing with the Republican Party. Plus, we have 3 Democrat votes, and one person actually left the Democrat Party over it and joined the Republican Party, as you know.
Speaking of which, the Republican Party hasn't been this unified in I don't know how long.
Never. It's never. They say maybe never. And one thing I gave the Democrats credit for, they've always been very vicious. And that's not necessarily a good thing. But what is a good thing is they always stuck together. And here the Republicans stuck together even better than the Democrats. So we had like 196 or 197 to nothing. It's unheard of. You know that because they're always breaking off. And I don't know. And this is really for 70 years, 80 years. You know, for some reason it's in the DNA. They just don't seem. And in this case, they have been so good. And I think the Senate will be the same way because the Senate knows it's a hoax.
Well,
everybody knows it's a hoax.
The Republican Party is now the party of Trump. I mean, there's no question about it.
I just think it's a party of common sense. You know, I view it. Somebody said, are you conservative? Well, I'm conservative. But I think it's common sense. It was like what we did this 2 days ago with this horrible terrorist. He was a terrorist. You know, they don't want to call him a terrorist. Now the Democrats are trying to make him sound like he was this wonderful human being.
He was a poet. Yeah, he was a poet.
Yeah, he's a poet.
Poetry out there.
Well, when you read the New York Times or you read the Washington Post, that are totally fake newspapers, by the way, that would have both been out of business except I won. I wonder what happens hopefully in 5 years, right? Hopefully in 5 years. But I wonder what happens to those newspapers. Who knows? But they do well now. Although if you look at the unfunded liability, probably they don't do so well. But you look at what they write, it's so fake, it's so phony, and now they're trying to build him just like they did al-Baghdadi. Al-Baghdadi was the #1 terrorist in the world. We got him. They wrote very little about it, relatively speaking. That story disappeared very quickly, as you know. But they tried to build him up into a relatively wonderful man. He was a total bad guy.
Yeah.
He founded ISIS. He was doing it again. He was trying to do it again. You know, I wiped out ISIS during our administration. We wiped out the entire caliphate, 100% of the caliphate, and we wiped him out. And, you know, got little credit. But our people know that we did it, Rush, because of people like you and Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and so many others. Your friends at Fox and Friends in the morning are so good. You know, people are getting it. They really get it. And because of social media and my Twitter. Without Twitter, I think would be lost. We wouldn't be able to get the truth out.
Yeah, that's a good point. People still say to me, you need to ask him to stop tweeting so much. I tell him, look, it's the only way he can get his message out. And it's not a negative at all. People say he needs to dial back the drama, needs to dial back the chaos. I disagree with that. I think you're doing exactly what you have to do given the circumstances presented to you.
Well, I wish I didn't have to do it. I wish we had legitimate newspaper and legitimate media. We don't. I mean, it's much of it is really, I call it corrupt. It's the corrupt media. And it's very interesting. You understand this better than anybody. If they do a story in me, I immediately know if it's false or not false. And I don't mind if it's a bad story if it's right. But I know a person reading the story doesn't know that it's false. So I'm able to tell them through social media. I don't even call it Twitter. I call it social media because it goes to everything. It goes to Facebook. It goes to Instagram. And we have hundreds of millions of people. We have a tremendous amount of people. Just on one site, I'm up to, I guess, close to 70 million people.
Yeah, and they're jealous as they can be of that. No, of course they want you to stop.
I had dinner with Mark Zuckerberg the other day, and he said, I'd like to congratulate you in front of a large group of people. So I'm not there. But he said, I'd like to congratulate you. You're number one on Facebook. And, it's incredible. And that's
Wait a minute. You had dinner with Zuckerberg?
I did.
Oh, wait till the world finds out about that. I guess they just did.
You have semi-breaking news. I guess a couple of people might have reported it, but they're not like you. So I just got a list. The TSL Power 50, the number one show on radio, has a guy named Rush Limbaugh. Did you ever hear of him? Rush Limbaugh, number one. They have you. And this is the 50 most influential and most listened to streaming talk shows in the country. Rush Limbaugh, number one. So I hope you saw that. But now we've just made your interview. But your viewers have to know that. Your listeners have to know that. Number one. Great job.
Thank you, sir. And your timing is impeccable. You're a broadcast specialist from The Apprentice and so forth, and you've right up to the break here. I can't thank you enough for this. I wish we had even more time. People love you, sir, and they are grateful, and they know that you still are focused on them, that you're still implementing the agenda that you ran up.
I love them.
They know that too. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great, great rest of this day and year. Hope it's the greatest year of your life, sir.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Rush, and thank you for everything, and congratulations on your incredible success. It's so important for this country what you do. Thank you very much, Rush.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.